Hi everybody! Last weekend was the Pittsburgh Arts Festival, and being an art student, of course I love to go every year, but I also go with a lot of my friends who are not art students, and one of the most common things that I hear them say is that they have all these creative ideas, but they just have no clue how to get it down onto paper. Well, just like I told them, I'm going to teach you how the best way is to get those ideas down on paper, and that's by creating a comic book. I'm going to be teaching you the different kinds of supplies that you're going to need, how to create the plot and characters, the page layout, and finally the cover art. There's a lot of different things that go into a comic book, but once you get it all down, it's really not that difficult. So first, we're going to be talking about the different kinds of supplies you need. Of course, first and foremost, you're going to need some paper. You'll need a pencil, an eraser, a pen or a marker, a different variety of brushes, some paint. In this case, we're going to be using watercolor, a pellet to put your paint on. For watercolor, you'll need probably a glass of water or a mug of water, and you'll probably need that for any other kind of paint as well. And then you'll also need some inspiration. So that's the first thing that we're going to be talking about. There's a lot of different things that could inspire you to create a comic. If you're a beginner, I suggest that you write about what you know, so things like your friends, your family, or different kinds of things that interest you. For me, I'm going to be creating my characters from different things around my house. The first thing that I'm going to be using is this doll, this little skull guy, and this painting that my husband did of these skull dominoes. I'm going to try and keep it at a central theme, so it's going to be skulls and skeletons. Okay, so then, once you have an idea of what your inspiration is going to be, you're going to want to start to write your story. That's easy to do. You basically just need a pen and a paper and just your ideas so that you can write them down. I personally like to use a computer and just type it because it's faster, but that's up to you what you use. Once you figure out what the story is, then it's time to decide what your characters are going to look like. In this case, it's handy to have a sketchbook, or like I showed you before, you could just have some paper, and you're just going to do some pencil sketches or pen sketches of what you think your characters are going to look like. This could be anything. So some of them that I did just look a little bit like this. As you can see, I just kind of sketch out what I think they are going to look like. Once you decide what your character is going to look like, then you're ready to make the page layout. So at that point, you have a good idea of what your characters look like, of what your story is going to be. So you want to make sure that on your page layout, you have enough room for if there's going to be a lot of pictures, or if your story has a lot of talking in it, that there's going to be enough space for you to put the text that you're going to need to put down. In my case, I like to do what's called a preliminary sketch. So the preliminary sketch is kind of like a blueprint. So you make this blueprint, and you do it with pencil, and it'll look a little bit something like this. And it's just a layout of what you think you want your page to look like, so that whenever you go and put the details in, everything already has a base. Once you do that, you take your trusty pen and just go ahead and outline everything in pen, add some details if you want to, and it should end up looking a little bit something like this. Then when you're done with that, all you have to do is add some text, and just like this one, you'll have a little tiny comic with some text in there, and it'll be telling your story. Another very important thing that you want to add to your comic is going to be cover art. Now for cover art, This is something that's going to be showing your characters in your story just in a little snapshot. It's going to get your audience and readers wanting to know more about what your comic is about, or give them a little bit of an idea of what everything is about so that they can have a feel for it. Now for this is what we're going to be doing, is we'll be doing a traditional cover art. So we'll be using some paints. For this one, I'm going to be using yellow, red, blue, and white. Get your trusty paintbrushes and your palette. Of course, the first thing that you're going to want to do is the preliminary sketch again. So get your pencil and just go ahead and sketch something out. Now for me, I like to, if I'm painting, use a marker, a washable Crayola marker, because it blends in whenever I'm painting so that you can't tell that it's there after you're done with the painting. Then all you want to do, take your brush, dip it in some water, put the paints onto your palette, and start painting away, just like as if it were a coloring book. Now, the final product should look a little bit something like this. Now, whenever you've finally finished your comic book, you can go back, take a look at the cover, and a couple of the pages, and your comic book is done. You have a great way to have your story told and your ideas down on a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be complicated or anything. So, just remember that you'll need a bunch of supplies, but they don't have to be too expensive or too crazy. Just random things that you can probably find at the local art store or just laying around your house. You should be able to create a plot very easily just with a pen and paper, some character designs with some pencil, paper, and pen, a page layout just like a blueprint for your comic, and then of course the last piece is the cover art, which will tell everybody what your piece is about.